And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. We've got some conflicting models to show you, as there is a coronal mass ejection headed Earth's way. First thing we're looking at here is some SDO imagery of the closest star. It's the object that makes the weather in the solar system and indeed on Earth. Check out this filamentary situation going on up here in the northeast. We've got some more imagery for you there in a different wavelength momentarily. First composite imagery. Oh, no, okay. We're going to 304 angstroms next. And by the way, we just have the view rotating here. The sun is not moving away from the Earth. The Earth is not located there. It's just there for scale. We've got 0 sunspots, by the way, and the radio flux has dipped back down to 76. Here's the magnetogram. And I would note that these coronal hole areas over here are featuring some weird mixed magnetism. And you can see a little bit of that on the colorized magnetogram there. Come on, Epic Pen. There we go. Wow, it works. Cheers. So there is the colorized magnetogram. Again, 0 sunspots. And these coronal holes up here, there are coronal holes around this area. They are of mixed magnetic orientation, I'll say. So here's a composite. This is 3 different ionized wavelengths of iron emissions. 335, 193, and 94 angstroms, all in one convenient SDO video. And here's a diagram of the solar system. We'll advance this a week. There's where things will be in a week on August 6th. If you are up before dawn, go have a look. You may see Jupiter and Saturn up there near the ecliptic. Also the moon looking pretty bright as we've got clear skies over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Next, I'd like to thank our patrons, the real stars when it comes to these videos. And we're almost at 2,000 YouTube subscribers. Oh my God, what a milestone. So thanks again, patrons, the true source of funding for the content. Please consider becoming a patron. You'll get perks. You'll have the ability to say that you helped fund the YouTube channel that's going to explain the mechanism behind the solar polar field reversal cycles, the sunspot cycles, and heliophysics in general. Leave us a comment, Kimberly, regarding the explanation of the solar polar field reversal cycles. And the 10.7 centimeter radio flux once again has dropped down to 76. Now let's look at some conflicting models. Before that, there's the graph of the radio flux. The black line is the radio flux. And the sunspot number has dropped all the way down to 0. So here's one model showing no coronal mass ejection to strike the Earth at all. And this is from the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. So I don't know what is up with this modeling. I don't even see a coronal mass ejection there, period. However, I would assure you that there is one headed Earth's direction at the moment. So here's another model which is completely different. And you can find this one on the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. As you can see here, this model is expecting to see a strike on something like August 2nd. I don't know. I just figured I'd show both models. And keep in mind, we only forecast coronal mass ejections before they occur. We're not currently trying to calculate trajectory or speed, as we've got to do one thing at a time, as we're not paid to do more than one thing at a time. We're not paid, period, pretty much. And of course, that's one of the reasons that I always state that I'm not only smAsho, but I'm also a client, as I watch the videos on a much larger screen than my computer monitor. And our regular viewers may have noticed yesterday we made a video talking about tsunami warnings, as there were some tsunami warnings when we made yesterday's video. The 7 magnitude earthquake drought has ended with an 8.2 south of the Alaskan Peninsula. So we're going to scroll up the list here. No other major quakes here over a 6 magnitude over the past 24 hours. Some in the 5 range, and we're just going to quickly scroll up here as we have lots and lots of earthquakes on the list. So some 5s, some deep quakes, nothing particularly noteworthy here. I'm just going to let the list scroll, as we don't want to spend too much time tarrying. We don't want to tarry. But we do want to bring back old-timey terms, like malarkey and hogwash and poppycock and rubes. So, join me in using archaic terminology. It's coming back. As we set trends, we don't chase fads. Anyway, again, some 5 magnitude quakes have occurred in the past 24 hours, such as this 5.5 aftershock, very close to where that 8 magnitude tsunami warning generating quake occurred. By the way, I don't think we saw any tsunamis. I didn't see any reports yesterday afternoon. Let us know if you saw any reports of tsunamis. And for tsunami warnings to be issued, we have to have tsunami buoys triggered. So, but no tsunamis noted as far as I can tell. I didn't look super hard for it. Let's look at volcanoes, as we've got at least one new one on the list, and a pretty significant eruption here from Suwanosejima. There's the imagery from that. Suwanosejima producing a 13,000-foot ash plume there through some explosive activity. Oh my God. It's an uptick at Suwanosejima. It's an uptick in general. So Luatolo producing brush fires, and about a 3,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Tokono exploding, flight level 070, 7,000-foot ash plume. And Pagan in the Mariana Islands, near the deepest portion of the ocean, now showing up on the list as a departure from background activity, and therefore aviation color code changed to yellow. So an aviation advisory there for Pagan, Mount Pagan not monitored with ground-based geophysical instrumentation. No major eruption from it at the moment. Sangay producing a 20,000-foot ash plume as it explodes in the country of Ecuador. And Sabancaya is exploding as well, producing intermittent emissions and a volcanic ash plume of 21,000 feet. A reminder to not pole vault the caldera. Now, I would cite the fact that no matter how bad things get, folks, where there's life, there's hope. Things might not be as bad as they seem, and certainly there are a lot of YouTube channels being incentivized to make you think that things are worse than they are in reality. So many of you have unplugged from CNN and other mainstream news sources. Some of you ought to unplug from YouTube as well, as there are many, many hack frauds paid millions and millions and millions of dollars a year to lie to you in order to sell items and books and fraud. Let's look at the sun-facing suite of instruments on the GOES X-ray flux. The GOES X-ray, the GOES 16 sun-facing suite of instruments showing no major flares. No significant flares, period, here over the past 3 days. No strikes in the proton flux. No surprises there. Again, there is a coronal mass ejection on the way. We don't really expect to even see a spike in the proton flux when that arrives at Earth. GOES magnetometer here looking like it's in a pretty constrained range here over the past 24 hours. We're seeing pretty high lows and pretty low highs as the Earth is about to be in a new polarity current sheet. In fact, it probably already is. This data is over 3 hours old when we made the video. And you can see the Earth about to snap into a North Pole-oriented current sheet, shown here in green. And that should cause some spiky patterns there in the GOES magnetometer throughout the day today. And it will give us some insight into the power of the North Solar Polar Field as well, once the current sheet is here. Here's the line of sight view of the same data. And for you new viewers, this is gathered from 51 ground-based magnetometers, as well as magnetometers on stereo A and stereo B. AOB, not to be confused with AOC. Next, the line of sight coronal hole plot, and I'm going to show you what I was talking about earlier on the colorized magnetogram. This area right over here, we're seeing some mixed magnetism as there are coronal holes both from the north and south poles. North pole and south pole oriented coronal holes there, right in the same portion of the sun. So this is going to cause an ongoing magnetic tug of war here in terms of the polarity. And depending on how much plasma filamentation here is in between the sun and the earth, it could be difficult to measure this. So we'll be keeping an eye on these coronal holes. And the fact that there aren't any solar flare watches, really. Very low likelihood of solar flares, what with the 0 sunspots. And the active regions really aren't even that active either. KP index is at 2. And for you new viewers, the KP index is a measurement of global geomagnetism. Let's look at some more global geomagnetism. But first, the real-time solar wind. So we have seen a bit of a subsiding of the solar wind speed here. A little recent spike should show some perturbations in the magnetohydrodynamic pressure, which we'll show you on the next frame. Current conditions are about 450 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed, quite a bit lower than yesterday where it was over 500, and solar wind density down to 3.94 protons per cubic centimeter. We also did recently see the BT-BZ shift, with the BZ shifting into negative territory. So the BZ now at -2. That could also signal an increase in geomagnetism. So we're expecting to see some changes happening here on the magnetohydrodynamic pressure from this University of Michigan geospace model data based on the space weather modeling framework. So there's a small uptick in the pressure in the bow shock region, the portion in between the Earth and the Sun, where the solar protons have to make a decision. Are they going to slow down or are they going to stay in the solar wind? That's 4 hours of data. Here are ground magnetic perturbations, and we see much less perturbed magnetic fields here on planet Earth than we did yesterday. Like the last frame, this is 4 hours of data. We show it daily because there's a polar excursion going on. The Earth has 2 north poles, and the South Pole has left the Antarctic continent thousands of miles from the geographic South Pole, somewhere in the Southern Ocean, south of Australia. By the way, thanks to all of our viewers on YouTube. We're approaching 2,000. If you have ideas for our 2,000 subscriber special, let us know in the comments. And frankly, without you viewers, we couldn't do it. We consider the whole thing a collaborative effort. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Tell us your history of viewing our channel. And if you're a new viewer, leave us a comment. Thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing our channel exists. We're also on Twitter. Try to follow us over there. And don't just get off of Twitter because of people getting banned. You can critique Twitter from Twitter. We've also got links to our merch. There's a sale going on, by the way. Save 25% with the promo code GETDRESSED. And you can find that link on the Twitter page or the smAsho merch link on our homepage at smAshomash.com. smAshomash.org will redirect you to smAshomash.com. So get dressed and vaccinate this. By the way, we're also on Twitch, and we do regularly live stream there. All right, folks, and today's cosmology segment is a separate video. Make sure you check that out, youtube.com/smAshomash/playlists, for all kinds of stuff you may not be aware of if you're only watching our daily space weather videos. Regarding electrons surrounding planet Earth, there are some charging hazards. They're minor. They're around Central America and Mexico, moving into the Central Pacific north of the equator. Here's the one-year chart of the electron flux in a more moderate range, and there's a forecast for a bit of an uptick. Here's the 3-day chart. It's the GO-16 electron flux. Keep in mind, the GO-16 is in a geosynchronous orbit. It measures the electron flux around 300 kilometers, where the F-flare is. It gives us insight into what's going on with the bridge between space and Earth, known as the ionosphere. We'll show you graphics of that a little bit later. Here's the forecast, and we're expecting electron warning levels to happen here according to the NOAA forecast. I would not tend to argue with that. That looks legit to me. And here's a diagram of the atmosphere in terms of Earth Van Allen belts, showing distances to satellites and so on in miles to give you a visualization of what we're looking at. And here's the total electron content. We saw some major anomalies yesterday. They even showed up on our thumbnail. And if you have any idea why people read our titles and thumbnails and then leave comments without watching the videos, let us know, because it makes no sense. Maybe they think they're punishing us by not giving us a view by watching the video. They're only punishing themselves by knowing less about the way the data correlates. It's hilarious. And we don't see any major anomalies here in the total electron content. Next, we're going to look at the F ionosphere layer. It's the Australian Bureau of Meteorology ionogram map. And this is what the website looks like. It's the Space Weather Services portion of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. It's the bridge between space and Earth, and we're seeing massive anomalies here once again in the Central Pacific Ocean here, just west of South America. So these high-frequency zones here are more common in the Northern Hemisphere during Northern Hemisphere summer, but we're seeing them in the Southern Hemisphere. Perhaps it's a result of the South Atlantic anomaly and the South African anomaly, sort of a tidal effect. It could be that, folks, but in any case, there's the data. And we're going to go more in depth into this at a later time. We'll be featuring anomaly maps and so on. But that's what's currently going on at the bridge between space and Earth, the ionosphere, at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here's the latest image from 7:30 Universal Time, and we're seeing very, very low frequency solar minimum light conditions here with the ionosphere. Check it out, only making it to 7 megahertz. Oh, okay, 9:30 Universal Time, making it to 8 megahertz. I don't know why it froze up, but there's the latest imagery from 9:30 Universal. And we did a meteorology segment today. Once again, folks, remember today's meteorology segment is a separate video. Go have a watch. Here come bonus features. Starting with El Teide, Spain's ground-based solar observatory. And I don't know what happened there. It looks like somebody turned the telescope. Things looking very strange there. And this data is kind of old. It's actually like 20 minutes old. I don't know what's up with that. Somehow I doubt the sun suddenly rotated. Here's the GOES 16 SUVI imagery. Prominence is on the northeast and southwest limbs. Showing up there. We've made sure the time and date stamps are visible. And while we don't see any coronal mass ejections associated with those prominences, there still is some possibility of additional coronal mass ejections in the Earth-facing zone, as one is already on the way to our sort of geospace. Next, the latest intensitygram to show you 0 sunspots. We'll press refresh on the colorized magnetogram as well. There's your high-res magnetogram. 0 sunspots. And we'll close out the video here with some SDO imagery in 193 angstroms. There's a coronal hole that's getting filled in as we speak, right near the equator there. Low levels of solar activity, coronal mass ejection on the way. Once again, congratulations on realizing our channel exists. Thanks for tuning in, and may that solar wind be at your back.